Okay, welcome everyone again. Thank you all for joining. We have Noah Griffith. I feel like I can't always pronounce your last name right. Is that right?
Griffith.
Griffith.
Yeah.
Joining us. He's actually a few offices away from me. He helps out with JH Israel and USIEA, and he's been on this call many times before. So I feel like I don't need to do a huge introduction. Thank you for
Yeah.
listening us, and I'll pass it off to you.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. I've only been on it once before, so if I'm a little bit off tempo, y'all just holler at me and be like, wait, slow down or stop talking and let's pray. Let's get this guy over with. Yeah, no, I'm pumped to be able to speak with you guys. A lot has passed. I think I haven't spoken since I got back from Israel, right?
I guess.
I don't think so. I think I would have remembered that, but I went to Israel with USIA kind of and Heather. I was helping out with them for a few days, but I had the unique experience of actually getting to farm in Israel for a handful of days. They are in a very interesting situation right now where the farmers have either been killed or killed on October 7th, or um, they have been called back to their home countries. A lot of the farmers in Israel are not just Israelis. The farm that I was at, they were Thai. And so I was down in Alomim, which is about adjacent to Gaza City. It's just a few miles, I think two from the border wall of Gaza. I don't know if you guys know my background, but I lived and worked at Christ Church after high school in Jerusalem, and they connected me with a little bus that left Jerusalem every single day and went down to the Gaza border, and we farmed clementines from 7 o'clock in the morning to about 4 o'clock, and I thought I would be going with a bunch of like war heroes and whatever, just this cool ragtag bunch, but it actually ended up being a lot of Jews that had made Aliyah. They'd become Israeli citizens in the 60s and 70s. Many of them were either Holocaust survivors or children of Holocaust survivors. And it was the most profound experience, I would say, one of the most in my entire life, being able to spend um, days with Jews who are either Holocaust survivors or related to those. Most of them are elderly, and how they have seen anti-Semitism engulf countries and engulf the world, and now they're seeing it happen to their very own country. Um, like I said, a lot of them, I would say 60 to 70% were American also. And it was a unique experience to see um, them watch America slowly turn its back on Israel. It's absolutely heartbreaking and gut-wrenching. Before we went into Kibbutz Elamim to farm for clementines, we stopped at a bomb shelter outside that kids had taken refuge in on October 7th, and all of them had been blown up or burned by Hamas. And to stand in a concrete wall with a collection of Jews that were very, very familiar with the Holocaust, and then to see it repeated in the same imagery um, on October 7th, specifically in the very room that we were in, was a feeling that I don't think I'll ever experience again. And I say this, I'm not just saying this because it's a story, but I want you guys to understand a little bit of the pulse of where Israel is right now and where Jews across America and Jews across Europe and really the entire world are right now. And it's that they believe that they're probably in the 1928, 1930s, early 1930s of the growing anti-Semitism right before the Holocaust happens again. Um, it is a very tough time for them. Uh, they One of the ones I spoke to rebuked himself for ever mocking Europe for having guards outside of synagogues, because now in America they have to have guards and police presence outside of synagogues and fear that there's going to be an attack. And when we were in that bomb shelter where the kids were killed, there was a little glass box that kid's mother had made of his shoes, like as a memorial for where he had died. And this woman starts weeping beside me, and I walked up to her and I was like, "Ma'am, are you okay?" And of course, they're from New York. I'm just like the Southern boy from South Carolina. Southern, and I'm a Christian too, so they're like trying to figure out why I'm even there. I was like, "Man, are you okay?" And she's like, "No, I'm not okay." Uh, Within 100 years, they're already putting our shoes back in glass boxes to remember us. And she is referencing, if you've been to Yad Vashem, if you've been to the Holocaust Museum, she's referencing the memorials of where they put the shoes before people were to go into concentration camps. And now they have all of those enclosed in glass boxes now, and that's how they remember it. And yet again, we're in a similar space, similar time. And so I'm saying this not to break your heart. Um, it shattered me for weeks being down in Gaza, beside Gaza, farming. But once I got my feet back in the States after, um, there's a real charge to rally the troops. Um, Now is not the time, any way, shape, or form, for silence, for being quiet about supporting Israel, supporting the Jews. Um, and in fact, the silence is expected from them. They've already discounted America, many of them, the ones I've spoken to. They already know that it's a slippery slope and they'll lose the states within the next 50 years. Europe is three sheets to the wind right now. They feel absolutely abandoned, and that's done two things. It's disheartened Israel, but it's also sounded the beacon of a homecoming. And you have many young Jews from the States, Europe, across the world that are coming home to Israel. And I talked to one. I was on a bus with one. This young girl, she was about 20. She just made Aliyah 3 months ago. She had a great job in the States. She jumped over into Israel in January, and she has no job here. Doesn't She's kind of just flying by the seat of her pants in Israel. She was farming with us because literally she needed a bus ride and some food. Um, and I asked her why she leave it all, and she said there's a beacon going off in all of us to return to our homeland. And I think, when we talk about what to pray for, that beacon goes off in the heart of the Jews right now, that they know that Israel is calling, Zion is calling them, God is calling them back to their home, um, and that we can all be a light to them, um, and show that we are allies. There's so many. It shocks me how fickle American allies to Israel, to Jews are. I mean, they get all inspired at one point, and they'll watch a great video on Israel, and then when somebody confronts them about it, it's like it's the first thing to go. You've forgotten Israel, forgotten the providence there. Uh, it's going to take courage to stand up for Israel and the next coming days, months, years. Um, and now is certainly, I believe, a dividing point of where you're gonna have to decide which side you're gonna be on. Are you gonna be a quiet person that stands in the back? We know many people who quietly stood, um, as the Holocaust played out, and they quietly just well, we're not affiliated. We're not doing, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to stand in the line. And then there was a lot of people who gave up their lives saying, no, we're not allowing this to happen, and we're willing to risk it all. Um, and it doesn't take much for me to tell you guys that there is a severe vitriol in the States right now. We've seen it on college campuses. It has certainly charged us at JH Israel and USIEA. And interestingly enough, in January, we were having a meeting with JH Israel, and immediately popped into my head how we could begin um, JH Israel Joshua Generation chapters on college campuses. And now we have been working on that equation for months and trying to see what kind of framework we need, what needs to happen, how do we cultivate uh, more warriors for Israel and for the Jewish people. How do we translate that? The reality is that the John Hagee generation is dying. And that's not a thing of offense to anyone. That is, we have a complete voting bloc of America that has no affection for Israel, could care less. It's my generation. I'm responsible for it, and I take that responsibility with I do not take it lightly. That's why we've begun working on the equation of how do we incorporate Joshua Generation into college campuses? How do we translate what has been taught to many generations of Christians in America and believers in America or Jews in America to care about Israel? How do we translate that to the modern generation? That's what we're working on currently. Right now, we need you guys and everyone grabbing arms, pulling people into support for Israel. Um, I see somebody talking about their church. Churches are like are ground zero right now, where I don't hear anything. There's nothing about Israel. Uh, it doesn't take a genius to pick up the Bible and say, "Oh, sounds like God cares about Israel." I mean, it's base layer stuff, um, and you can dive super deep into all the providence and provision with Israel. But my charge to you guys, and what I'm telling everyone right now, it's not just you guys, it's just the people that we're working with, Joshua generation at board meetings. I've gotten on this soapbox a handful of times. Um, I probably will tonight during our meeting. But my charge to you guys is physically grab people and pull them into this.
Mhm.
Don't be passive in this awful time. The Jews that I have interacted with, just I was picking clementines. They're crying that a young Christian would even stand up to support Israel right now because that's foreign. It's a unicorn to them. Um, and I'm sitting there asking, I'm like, well, please don't discount that because there's plenty of us and they just don't hear it. And so if you have a Jewish friend, grab them and tell them that you love them, you support them. Um, and if you have a friend that absolutely hates Israel, grab them and tell them that you love them, and then tell them why you love Israel. Don't don't be the first to pop off on being angry and starting. There's bickering has been going on about the land for thousands of years. What the biggest thing that sells Israel is that they love people there. They support people. Um, I'm getting some questions here that I don't do I take questions, Janie? I don't know what the precedent is like
Please,
in that.
please do, Noah.
Um, how to get your voice to your peers in USA. I think people discount um, they discount how much your voice does and how big your community is. Um, if you have 5 people, you have a lot of people. And those 5 people have 5 people, and all it takes is one word. I think if you're in this Zoom, there's been a word that has struck you about Israel that has ignited that spark in your heart. And so all it takes is that one person, and then you've just ignited an entire train. And I would never, ever discount. Don't rely on yourself to be um, oh, if I tell someone, I'm trying to figure out how to say this. If I open my mouth, is this going to be successful? That's a lot of pressure. You put pressure on yourself to be successful about communicating Israel. Let the Lord do that. He's going to carry that baton, but just be brave enough to be like, hey, I love you and I love Israel. Pull those people into that. I think, like I said, I think everyone, if you're going to church, you've got plenty of people to witness to. That's your circle. I mean, really, really, the church is like what I want to like shake, physically shake right now. I'm like, we got brothers and sisters who are fighting in the Lord's army right now, being killed, and everybody's just been turning their back. I mean, I counted this morning when I woke up. First thing I did when I woke up was count how many rockets were fired into Israel and how many drones were shot into Israel. And there's like 30 plus. And meanwhile, the church is silent. Um, I think we have to do a better job of realizing that our circles are much bigger than we think they are, especially with social media. And all it takes is, hey, um, I care about Israel. This person looks up something on social media, then they start to understand it, and then they're sharing it, and then you've ignited a fire and hundreds of people. Next one is how can the 60 somethings, help you as a 20 something? You and your generation are vitally important. We are for you. Well, thank you. Um, I uh, I agree that our generation is uh, important as well as dangerous. And there's not a lot of folks fully realizing it. I think the worst thing that we can do is write off my generation as they won't be something, this new age, whatever. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. Like a lot of people say like, oh, they're gone. They're out of the picture. But I think my generation is super influenceable, and that's what you're seeing as a result of like the tenacity with the Hamas supporters and college campuses is that they're super influenceable and they believe anything they see. And I think making sure that the right information is out there. And I think there's something to be said about being a leader and and your and your walk and your love for the Lord. I mean, the passion I have for Israel comes from um, 60 somethings, 70 somethings, 80 somethings who have walked the walk, talked the talk, and uh, stood for something. And I think this is what happened with cancel culture is people started bowing to everything left and right. And what happened is if you don't stand for something, you end up standing for nothing. And so people have misconstrued that my generation is hungry for like bowing to whatever's most, woke or whatever's most, social right, social justice, and to the full point of its full circle, and now they're supporting Hamas. Uh, the reality is I think my generation is hungry and unbelievably dehydrated and thirsty for somebody that's saying, "No, I'm not bowing down. I'm sticking my ground. I'm doing it with X, Y, and Z reasons, ethical reasons." Um, and there's a billion of those about Israel. And I think being a 60 something who is willing to just stand their ground and not be ignorant, but just stand their ground is something that's admirable, and is something that my generation is absolutely craving. Um, yeah, I think if you're willing to just stand for something, especially with Israel, I mean, like I said, the resources are endless on why we should be standing up for Israel. And if you need one big one, the Holocaust. I mean, and I mean, it's Independence Day this week in Israel, um, and Ari Sasser, who's on the USIEA side of things, he wrote that 100 years ago we never had the option to say, "Hey, where's the IDF?" And it's clear that there's constantly an attack on Jews throughout history. I tried counting all the ticks on Wikipedia of how many times the Jews have come under attack, and I stopped at 100, and I hadn't even made it to the 1500s. So I hadn't even made it to the Holocaust yet. So there's plenty of evidence of why the Jewish people need a homeland, or they will be killed. And we have to be bold in how we're standing up for bold young lions. That's right. I'm a firm believer in the Lion of Judah. And what I would say is, in the despair of all of this, is that it was so clear to me. And I hate to do a Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe reference, but I'm going to, so just deal with it. But when I was over there, and just the constant despair of the massacre, they're still living in an October 7th world. It's not, this was an attack that happened. They live in an October 7th world, and they feel like they're under attack. There was this constant undertone of God's on the move. Jews are telling me that God's on the move.
Mm.
Something is happening. And it reminded me of the time of when Aslan is going around and breathing life onto the rest of the army to come back and fight the big battle. I think God's on the move, and we have the opportunity. I can kind of stop with here. We have the opportunity to be a part of God being on the move. And that is a privilege and a responsibility. And we gotta step up to the plate for it. So bring your friends into here, share stuff with them. Janie produced some awesome content recently about Israel, through JH Israel, and share that stuff with people. Just be willing to talk to them, and don't do it from just like a hate filled. Do it from a love filled position, and stand your ground on it. And make sure that the Jews know that you're there doing it too, because they need that comfort right now more than ever. So I forget the process of things. I've been talking too long. Sue me. I'm guilty of that often. But I can open us in prayer. I do have to run off here. Can connection be made with Dallas Jenkins and the Chosen? I know Dallas's folks. I've reached out to him a couple of times. Wouldn't be surprised if that comes into play later down the road. But like I said, I just said I would stop talking. I kept talking. So I don't know, Jane. Are we doing prayer first?
Yes, that was so good. I think everyone is in agreement that with everything that you said, and if you read, you can go back through when we're praying and read the comments, but so encouraging to see just y'all's generation coming behind our generation and encouraging us, and even so we can encourage the generations below us. And I know we're Gen Z, millennial, that at least Noah and I's age group is the line, but the same goes for high schoolers and middle schoolers, and revealing Israel to them at that age too. So good word today. But yeah, you can lead us in prayer, and then Sharon's gonna take over for rapid fire.